Hello everyone, and welcome for this new conference of the Master Digital Twins. And it's with great pleasure today to welcome SOLIDEO, so Yann Krysinski, Alexandre MAHFOUD of SOLIDEO. Just to be brief, we are a little late, and sorry for that. So in this cycle of conferences, we like to talk about digital twins and to widen the scope of digital twins. And sometimes we focus on specific themes. And today, so the themes will be more oriented with BIM and CIM on a very specific case, which is all the venues and infrastructures for the Olympic Games, which is one of a kind project in one's careers, I think. So very, very happy to host both of you. Also, to be honest, and not because I've known Yann for nearly 20 years now, so we stop counting, but because it's a huge achievement they've done at SOLIDEO for the past few years. I will be monitoring the conference online also. We have some learners from the Master online with public attendees, and also some students and learners from the Master BIM with Director of Master BIM here also. You have 40 minutes. And so it's also a special conference because it's the first time we have two lecturers, actually. So Yann, you are VP Strategic and Project Manager at SOLIDEO. And Alexandre, you are the BIM specialist and expert at SOLIDEO and key figure for digital transformation at SOLIDEO. So 40 minutes of talk and then a question and answer session just after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. I'm very happy to be here today. I was on these very benches 16 years ago, I counted. So I'm the VP of Project Management at SOLIDEO. We are the public entity in France in charge of building all the sites, all the buildings, all the infrastructures required for the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games. It is the world's largest event that will take place in Paris in July and August. It's the equivalent of 43 soccer world championships simultaneously happening in Paris. You will have over 4 billion viewers and about 13 million tickets are sold. We spent about 4 billion euros building the 70 projects I'm going to show you, and we did that over 4 years. So our production rate was around 1 billion euros per year over the past 4 years in the Paris area. Our governance is focused on making sure that we can deliver all these sites on time. And so we're here. SOLIDEO is here. We're a public entity. I'm the VP of Project Management in that entity. And we are building all the sites that will remain after the games. So our sites have 2 lives. They will have 1 life during the games and 1 life, a second life after the games. And you will see all of that in our BIM and CIM models as well. And then in the middle, you have Paris 2024. They are in charge of the event. So they're the organizers. Tony Estanguet, very famous former French athlete, is at the head of Paris 2024, and they're organizing the event, so they will know where the delegations are staying. I don't know. They decide which sports is done in which site. I'm just building them. They will operate the sites. And then you have the heritage stakeholders here. So those are very important. Usually those are the owners of the sites after the games. So all the pools that we're building, all the bridges will have to be owned and operated by an entity, and so they're part of our team, and they were part of our team from the very beginning to make sure that the sites could be properly handed over to them. So our mission, I already went through a little bit of that. So we were in charge of the program of the 70 projects. There's something a little specific. So I wrote supervision. So we don't, those 4 billion euros of construction, we didn't do all of them directly. I'm doing about half of that budget. And the other half, we gave it to some of the owners of those sites. So whenever it was possible, we delegated some of those projects to the future owners, again, to make sure that those projects would be properly turned into long-term infrastructures. We are in charge of the public financing. About 50% of our budget comes from public money. And we try to document new practices, including the BIM and CIM approach that we're going to talk about today. And then we have a lot of temporary venues. So you will see in July, and you guys may have tickets or not, but I think you will see it really well on TV, maybe even better than in person. You have a lot of temporary infrastructures. So, for instance, along the Seine, we will have a lot of seats around the Concorde, around the Eiffel Tower. Those we don't do because they're temporary. So the organizers are doing that. We're only building whatever is permanent. So those are the 70 projects I talked about, 4 billion euros, and half of that budget is the athletes' village in the middle. And that village is where all the athletes are going to stay during the games, and it's half of our budget. We were created in 2017, and we're going to disappear in 2025. So we had about 6 years to do this, to spend that money, and I think it's about a third of the time that would normally be required to build so much. So it's been a lot of work, and we are going to disappear at the end of 2025. We have about 2 years, a year and a half of reconversion to repurpose all those sites after the games for their long-term lives. I already talked about that, 4 billion euros of budget. About half of that is public money, the rest is private financing. And we have a very complicated ecosystem, I would say French style. It's a lot of, so we have 13 different public sources of financing, and then, as I said, about 30 project owners, because we didn't do everything ourselves, we delegated some. And then this is just a picture of how the project was organized in London in 2012. So that was 12 years ago, and I met with my British counterparts. And it's actually much simpler what they did, because they were in charge, they're here, and they were in charge of all the projects. And we didn't have that approach in France. In France, we tried to delegate the project to some of the owners of those future sites. They had a different approach, which may not be the best one in the long run, but in terms of project delivery, it's much more efficient. Okay, so this is the athletes' village. So it's in the northern suburb of Paris, in Saint-Ouen, Saint-Denis, and Ile-Saint-Denis. And here, when I took the job 4 years ago, there was nothing. There was literally nothing there. We had just put down, destroyed old existing buildings. It's mostly logistical industrial buildings that we put down. And it's the equivalent of 70 soccer fields of land with nothing. We did earthworks. There was no water, there was no electricity, there was literally nothing, and a lot of difficult earthworks to do. And 4 years later, you have about 40 buildings, 300,000 square meters built. It was the largest construction site in France for 2 years. We had 3,000 construction workers, 40 cranes, 500 trucks per day arriving here. Can you imagine? Like, the trucks usually arrive in the morning, over 3 hours, 500 trucks every day. And it's done. And so President Macron came. So this is I'm not on the picture, unfortunately. This is my boss. This is the CEO. And I wish I could be on the picture, but I'm not. And this is the Anne Hidalgo. She's the mayor of Paris, and she's the head of our board. And you have here Tony Estanguet. So we're handing over the key to Tony Estanguet. There are actually 3,000 keys. It weighs several tons. the total number of keys and locks, but this is just for the symbol. So we built the entire village. That's part of the village here, and I like this picture because the topography of the site is very complicated. We have 15 meters of difference between the Rue d'Ampère and then the Seine, and using the BIM CIM model, we were able to make sure that all the public spaces built were perfectly accessible to people with a disability. And we decided to build a ramp here, and this is going to be the most famous part of the village. It's the Olympic Plaza, and we designed it to make sure that the path that's accessible is the nice path. So we put the money where we wanted everyone to go, including people with a disability. And you see it here on this ramp. So it's done. You have a couple of pictures here. That's just for the fun. We have a couple of innovative features in our public spaces, and one of them is an air filter. We're filtering the air. We're not very far from the highway, to remove the smallest particles from the air, to try to create areas of public space, volumes of public space that have been depolluted. We built a second village. It's on Denis and Le Bourget, also in the northern suburbs of Paris, and it's the village that will host. So it's here. It's here. And we're going to host here the media, the technicians who are in charge of broadcasting. And it's here. You see a drone view of the village. Again, there was nothing 4 years ago. We also have to build. This is it's in the Le Bourget airport, and this is going to be the broadcasting center that we also built for the games. And then a lot of competition sites. Arena Porte de la Chapelle was just finished last month, and you will see, here. So again, built from scratch. It's going to be for basketball during and after the games. The Grand Palais is under renovation, another competition site. It's not quite finished. It's going to be finished in a couple weeks. In Marseille, we build a couple new buildings to host the sailing competitions. And then very famously, we just finished the Olympic Aquatic Center across the highway from the Stade de France. And then we built a lot of other things, 8 swimming pools, mostly for training, because all the athletes have to train right before the site to warm up. We built several bridges. My favorite one is this one here. It's the first, I think, in France, it's the first bridge made out of wood over a highway, I think. Well, and how do we build this? So we built all of that in just 4 years. So here you have the athletes' village total, so the 40 buildings. And we had very high environmental ambitions, which we organize in 4 different aspects. And the first one is carbon neutrality. Well, it's the same thing. 4 different ways to reach our environmental goals. The first way is that we have a reduction of about 50% of our carbon emissions. And we're going to talk about that. The BIM and CIM models that we use helped us make sure that the reduction in material consumption was enough to reach that level. And we also use a lot of wood, natural materials. All the buildings under 28 meters were built using wood, usually the structures or the frames and the floors, sorry. Climate resilience, we had to make sure that we were building apartments that would be comfortable places to live in during the games, but also after the games. And we and Alexandre will also talk about that. We did a simulation to make sure that under 2050 climates, the apartments would be comfortable places to live in without air conditioning. We reused 96% of the construction material, and we planted several thousand trees. So you see some of the buildings. That was a year and a half ago on the Athletes Village. You see the structures, the wooden structures of the buildings. We use ultra low carbon concrete when wood was not an option. We produce concrete on site to make sure that we had like as few trucks as possible, even though there were 500 of them per day. And we built 10 kilometers of underground cooling and water and heating system. We went to get water, naturally cool water, 70 meters underground. Again, so that's the site when I joined, when I took the job. That's what it looked like. So you see, that was in 2020, and then 4 years later, you have this. 96% of the material I said from this construction, and so this may be a weird picture, but it's a very important one. So all the athletes are staying in apartments, and after the games, those apartments are going to be available for sale, and they're going to be used by people like you and me. So you can buy apartments in the athletes' village or rent apartments after the games. But during the games, the athletes have some specific needs, and they don't need kitchens. So we didn't install the kitchens during the games, and we created we added another partition, another wall, to create another bedroom where the kitchen will be in the future. And so after the games, we have to remove those walls. So we have a little bit of repurposing, reconversion after the games, and 75% of the materials removed from the village will be upcycled, will be reused. 9,000 trees were planted, I already said it. Vegetated roofs, and then a lot of green spaces. So here you have an image of the village from the other side. And another important thing is that you want to build, you don't want to, you want to build in a specific way, and for us, we had like social values that we wanted to demonstrate through the act of building, and so we allocated over 10% of all the hours worked on our site to people far from employment. In French, we call that insertion. So it's people who have been far from employment, and they go back to work. They join the labor force again, and 2.8 million hours were given to them. And then 37% of our contracts were awarded to small and mid-sized companies. We didn't want only the big construction companies to build. All right, so that's the introduction. And then I'm going to give the mic to my colleague, Alexandre.
Thank you. Thank you, Yann. I'm very happy to be here. And in the second part of this presentation, we will talk about the approach CIM BIM of SOLIDEO. So our approach or our process has been starting in 2019, and it is based on three major axes. First of all, we have improving the skills. As we know all, the BIM applications or BIM technology is relatively new. So we had to work on this axe to make people understand what BIM is and how we can use it and why. So we created a plan for internal training. It means we presented the BIM and digital model for the colleagues who works on the project, like project managers or project directors. And we made them understand the model, how we can read it, how we can visualize, how we can show it, and what we can do with it. Also, we made and we share our feedback with the partners, especially with architects and construction companies, to resolve the technical issues. And it was very important to share this feedback with them to improve the skills. The second axe is they create the contractual framework. Actually, for the SOLIDEO, the BIM is integrated within the projects. It's not standalone or something in parallel. It is, it makes part of the project. So in our charter CIM BIM, we define the ecosystem of the project, Olympic projects, also the BIM environment. Then we define the BIM process. We define the several level of control to ensure the quality of models. We will talk about that later. As we know, all the digital model or DM is one of the major result of BIM process. So we had to work to improve and to ensure the quality of these models. Also, we define the deliverables, date and formats. We define the level of development, level of graphic details. At the end, we define the intellectual property. The third axe was ensuring the quality of digital models. As I said, the digital model, it is the visual result of BIM process. So we had to ensure the quality of these models. It's not a 3D model. We worked with the information, we worked on the development, level of development, etc. So our process is oriented BIM object. Also, it is oriented to use cases or BIM applications. We worked with IFC standards and classifications like Uniforma 2 2015. And the digital model for SOLIDEO or the BIM model, it's a kind of database that should be ready for any use and any time. It's our view of BIM. So one of the examples, it is the digital model of the Olympic Village. This is a compilation of 1,500 models, and each model contains two phases, one for Olympic Games and the other for the heritage. This model covers 65 hectares, and this is the largest model of BIM in Europe. To create this model, we use a lot of applications like Revit, Archicad, or Tekla. Also, we use a lot of platform to exchange the models. And this model was made by 41 architectural firm, 20 engineering agency, also 7 landscape firms. And this is a small video who show you the this model. So first of all, we can see the BIM model of Grande Neuf, La Grande Neuf, located in Ile-des-Vannes. We will talk about this model later. And it will be a training site for the athletes. And here, we can see the gymnasium of Pablo Neruda. It's a renovation project, and it will be used by the inhabitants after the games. It's not an Olympic project. It's for the inhabitants after the games. And here, the school of Saint-Ouen. It's a new project. Also, it will be used for the inhabitants after the games. And this is a complete view of the digital model of Olympic village. For the same objective, we created the model of media village. It covers 30 hectares, and it includes the public space, a digital model for public spaces and buildings. And this is a LIM model, landscape information modeling. We did it for the project of Colline de Loncourt. This project will receive the competition of bicycles, VTT. And this one model covers 52 hectares. Actually, it's one of rare LIM model in France. For the La Grande Nef, for this project, we create a complete BIM approach. It means the BIM process started from the phasing or programmation phase. And for that, we create a kind of 3D model created by a 3D scanner. We called it, as you know, the cloud of points. Then we created the BIM model. Actually, it was very useful for the architect because when we started this project, it was a COVID period. So these two models with 360 image, the architect and the engineers had a database in their computer because, as we know, it was very complicated to move to the construction site at that time. So now we will focus on the use cases. As we know all, some use cases, we know it and we know how we do it now, like, for example, the product of blue papers or the plans, facade, and sections. But SOLIDEO was pioneer for some use cases. Donc, our pioneer use cases, first of all, the integration of the two phases in the same model. We have, for each model contains the two phases, first one for the games and the other one for the heritage phase. Second one, we use the BIM model to analyze the architectural quality of each project. So I would like to focus on this point. We had this illustration in 2019, and that's what we have now. So we can see the fiability of the digital models. Also, we use the digital models to make to make a kind of analysis of interfaces between several projects. Here we have a very significant example. This example, we use the digital models to ensure the technical synthesis between the bridge, A1, and the public spaces, and the gymnasium of Le Bourget. This interaction between these three projects was very complicated, especially the group of architects doesn't have an interface point, contractual interface point, so we use the digital model to analyze the interfaces. Also, we use the GM to track design change through phases. As we know, all the project go on and it evaluates. So we use the 3D models to show the evolution of each project and the changement between the phases. And this one is very important. Actually, we integrated the 3D models in the GIS environment, and we explained for the inhabitants that there were no negative impact on their housing. For example, the shadows, sunlight, and viewpoint. Also, we use this workflow to in programmation phases for some projects, and for one project we had 3 months of gain, especially to define the variant that we will use. A new use cases of digital models is related to the universal accessibility. Actually, we make all the analysis of the universal accessibility within digital models. Also, we are developing a platform now. We are developing this platform to calculate the mobility and extract a data for this object, for the accessibility. We also use the BIM models or CIM model to make a lot of simulation. For example, this simulation was built by SOLIDEO and Dassault system to make analysis for examining the comfort zones. Here we can see the village, and here we can see the analysis or the simulation of the impact of waves on the village. And here we can see the sunshine on the elevation of the buildings. Then we take one level of this building and we made the simulation inside the apartments. So we focused on the 5th level. As we can see here, the temperature inside the apartment almost here. So this is the temperature inside the apartment within with heat wave period. And here we made a kind of comparison between the same for the same apartment with the cooling floor or floor cooling, under floor cooling, and without this under floor cooling. Then we use the CIM BIM models to make another simulation to define the location of the innovative urban treatment of air. And we did this simulation with the group Suez. Also, we integrated the BIM process with the artist, for the artist. Here we can see 2 examples. Actually, we use the digital model of Athletes Village to make the artist understand the different level of the project, because with plans it's not very visible. So we use the 3D models. Then we integrate the article of the artist, and we examine the different viewpoint of each artistic article. Another use cases related to our ambitions, it is the use of the 3D model of the village to examine the visibility or the view file of each camera, security camera, by integrating a BIM object of these cameras with the digital model of the village. Also, we use the CIM and BIM models for the communication and consultation, public consultation. Actually, in 2021, we have created a platform, digital platform, to show the inhabitants the future athletes village, and the inhabitants could add or participate with the conception or design of public spaces. And now we have just finished the development of the augmented reality of the village. So we can see the future buildings and the future public spaces. As we can see, actually it's just a screenshot. The buildings or these models have a lot of quality, and it is due to the BIM models. Actually, we use the same BIM models of the architects. And to finish, let's see the last video.
Dans le futur, on habitera là-bas et même qu'il y aura une piscine géante. N'importe quoi. On ira tout suivre dans la forêt, avec les arbres et plantes. Mais non.
This video was created in 2020. It was really impossible to make this kind of high quality videos without the BIM models. So I would like to focus on a very important point. It's the continuity of the use of our digital models. It means the same BIM models which was created by the architects, we use it for our needs. Also, the construction companies and the architect and the engineer use the same models for their needs. So this continuity of uses is very important. And thank you.
Thank you, Yann and Alexandre, to show us all this achievement for the past few years and all the whole chain, actually, from the BIM model from architects up to some simulation you made. And next question will be obviously about the heritage phase. So now it's time to little Q&A session. So I can monitor question online. So people, if you're listening online, you can ask on the chat, and I will ask the question for you. Or obviously in the room, you can raise your hand if you have some questions to the Yann or Alex. I can start actually with a little one, with a quick one, because I'm very curious. Do you know by any chance, the size actually in gigabyte of a terabyte, I don't know, of the BIM models, of all the BIM models you got? You have to store it on a computer, I think, somewhere. And I was just curious if it's, how big is it?
So for the size of each model, we define the size by 200 megabyte, but the compilation is about 1 gigabyte. Yeah.
Thank you. Any question in the room or in the chat? Yes.
So my question is about the heritage from the Olympic Games. I am from Rio, and the Olympic Games 2016. They promised a lot of heritage for the city, but the venues that was extremely eccentrated, far from the center of the town, and they tried to build the transportation and management. Sorry, but it not works as an heritage. So at this last video, I recognized the restaurant. There was a restaurant, Brazilian restaurant at Paris 12 arrondissement. So my question is, almost all the venues in the Seine-Saint-Denis department, so Les Bourgets, Saint-Denis, Saint-Ouen, that's right now it's really far from Paris, from Paris Deuxième, as example.
So your question is, will the heritage phase work? Is that your question?
Yes, because I don't see any transportation.
Well,
you don't deal with it with any Hidalgo and I don't know, Pécresse. She was
well,
Thank you.
Yeah, well, anyways, it's a very good question. So how do we make sure the heritage phase works? So line 14 will open in Saint-Denis, in Grand Pleyel in July. So you will be 10 or 15 minutes away from line 14 last stop to walk to the aquatic center or to walk to the athletes village. So we actually, the Paris built additional infrastructure to make sure that the sites would be easily accessible. And so that's for the transportation part of your question. And I mean, it was I think it's a big issue for the international committee. So when we won in 2017, 1 year after Rio, when we won, we bid, right, to be able to host the games. And the international committee selected Paris because we had a very convincing heritage programming. And so, for instance, all the apartments, we know that they're going to be used. There's a huge shortage of housing. And because it's very close to the subway station, we know it's going to be great for the Paris region. In terms of competition sites, a lot of them are inside Paris, so very near. So again, the aquatic center, I think by subway in the future, it will be probably like 15 minutes from Saint-Lazare. So we think it's going to be successful. We don't want to say that, we don't want to compare ourselves to Rio. We don't want to say that we'll do better. It's not really, but we were given the task to make sure that everything will work in 2025. And by the way, you have municipal elections in 2026. So there is a huge political pressure, in a good way, that the heritage phase in 2025 works out.
Just I have a question. Can I go so far and simulating the human behavior in digital tutor and study this behavior in digital tutor in digital twins? Sorry. We can simulating the human behavior in the digital twins.
Now we can. Now we didn't did it for our projects, but in general, now we have some applications who can use the BIM models to make this kind of simulation. We can do it. We didn't do it, but we can.
So my question is about the CIM strategy. So for you, for working about cloud points, for example, did you work with some partners like Esri, for example? They have work like a project, the name is Leader HD. Did you have like the base,
No,
for example, data?
Yeah, actually, the integration of BIM model with within GIS environment, we did it. I did by myself, and I have a small workflow to make that. Actually, it's very important to define why we do it, for which case, for which use, for which purpose. We didn't work with Esri, but we did it by ourselves in Enter.
My question is very related to this one, because maybe you can show us again the slide with the whole CIM, the digital twin of the whole village. Yeah, this one. So I was wondering, some of these buildings, they are not public. I mean, they are private. I think there is the Cité du Cinéma in this village. So I was wondering, when you were creating this CIM, how did you handle private buildings? Did you manage to have access to their digital twin and integrate it? Or is this just a building with, they are hollow? Maybe you don't have access to the indoor of these private buildings. I was wondering that.
Okay. For the City of Cinema, it's an existed building, so we had made the 3D model for the outside of the building, just the facade and elevations. We didn't model the inside of building. We don't use it, so we don't need to model it.
Thank you for your presence today and for this presentation. I actually have 3 questions. Should I start one by one? Okay. So the first one, did you use BIM sim process for the demolition part before you started construction, maybe for the study process?
Yes, actually, for to explain it here in this project, we have 5 sectors, and each sector is built by a contractor, authorities. So yes, we use that for this sector, for sector day. in D, in phase demolition and preparation of the construction site.
Okay, thank you. Another one is how much time did the study phase take before starting constructing and before presenting maybe the...
It depends on the projects, but for the public spaces, it was very short. I think that the total design development phase and prep of the request to bid for the construction companies, I think a total of 3 months.
3 months.
It's very short.
3 months using BIM.
So for design development phase. Yeah.
Okay, but if I may, without using BIM, how much would it?
I don't know.
How many years would it take?
I don't know. I mean, we are often asked the question of whether the BIM SIM approach makes the projects slower or faster, but we don't know, because for us it was obvious that we would have a BIM SIM approach, and I think when we talk to architects and engineers and construction companies, we don't have a clear answer. Some of them say that it helped them, and some of them say that it was a big step, and they had to make that, to bridge that gap. But I'm going to quote one of the architect who designed all of that, I think about 12 buildings here. It's pretty famous, but I'm not going to say who she is because I'm not quoting all the architects, but it's a pretty famous architect, and her architectural firm, I think there are about 20 architects. And she was awarded that part of the village, and the entire agency switched to BIM all at once. So she trained all of them, and they all jumped into the BIM world. And so she's very thankful, because thanks to us, we helped her just sort of like to turn around her agency and convert to the BIM SIM approach. But we have other agencies who maybe are bigger, maybe are a little less, I don't know, and they had a harder time.
Okay, thank you. One last question. Thank you. You for this project, you spoke about 2 digital models, one for before and one for the after the games. Yeah. So you started with one model, and then you created another one, or you worked on the same one but in copy?
Yeah. For the native files, we have the 2 phases. It means game phase and heritage phase. For the native file, it means for Revit or Archicad file. Then for the IFC, we have 2 models, one for heritage and one for games. But anyway, we use the same Revit or Archicad file to produce the 2 phases.
My question, hello. My question is about the SIM model of the village. So you said that you took the BIM models of all the projects, and my question is it just the envelope of the buildings, or you took some of the data that are included in these models?
Yeah, it's very important. Actually, we have the inside of the buildings from the beginning. From the beginning of project, we have really the inside architectural and technical models. But we were we draw attention to the needs of the graphist. So for this reason, we asked and we asked the contractors and the architects to produce the envelope models separately.
Okay, so you only kept the envelope, so it's just a representation of the buildings. 3D representation of the buildings.
We can use both together, and we can separate them.
Okay.
It depends on the
of the use. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Alexandre, we didn't prepare it for today, but we have, for instance, plumbing or electrical. We have the entire village all assembled.
So how we can use that, all of this data that we have about all this building, and how we can use them in the future. You talked about how you're gonna use the buildings after. So these digital models, how we can use them
well, that's a very,
in the
very
future.
good question. So it's a very good question, and we hope that you guys will have interesting ideas. So it's a lot of data, and some of the entities who are in charge of operating the buildings sometimes don't have the skills. So we probably have to adapt the models, simplify them, and just to give them only the data that they need. And so we're in the process of doing that. So the works are almost done, and we're talking to the future entities in charge of operations to try to work on that. But it's an open question.
Thank you.
Can you go back, please, to one slide you have shown with some slopes, with some colors near the Cité des Sciences du cinéma? Yeah, that one.
This one?
Yeah, this one, yeah. Let's suppose I am on a wheelchair and there's no sign. Then how can I know, is there any app which will show me if I don't have any electric wheelchair, it's just mechanic. If the red one, I can know it, then I know that I can go or not. I'm not enough strong. And I guess that the right side, there are some stairs. So if I'm blind one, yeah, yes, yeah, that one, yeah, for the wheelchairs. But at the right side, there are some stairs. So if I'm blind, for instance, how can I know? How can I be guided to know if there's any handrails or not?
We have signage. It's not on the model. We have signage that will help you, whether you're blind or whether you don't hear well or you don't see well. You don't have to be blind. You can just not see well. Or if you don't see, so we developed a signage, signalétique multisensoriel. So it's a signage that's adapted to all types of handicaps. So yeah, it's very important, and I guess we didn't really develop that here.
When we talk about BIM SIM, we are mainly talking about the information contained in digital models. How to manage information through multi-scale building to city. When we talk about BIM, is building information modeling and city information modeling, how to manage the...
How do you connect the two?
Yeah. Le passage d'information entre le multi-échelle, du BIM au SIM, du building à la cité.
For us, BIM is almost building information management because we are working with the data. Okay, so when we make the same process outside the building, so we are talking already about CIM, City Information Modeling. It's just a difference of scale of the model inside building BIM and outside its CIM. So,
but we have the same approach. So when we get a BIM model or we get a CIM model, it's the same. The two firms, the landscaping firm or the architectural firm, have the same requirements they have to give us.
Okay, I think that will be all for today. So thanks again, Yann and Alexandre, for this quite achievement and big success for the past few years. And I let open one of the last questions about how to transform the BIM model during the heritage fund and next phase during the exploitation and for maintenance and use of all these entities. So it's open debate, and I'm sure they will be very happy to have all your answers and all your insights if you have any ideas. Thanks again. Bye-bye.